So here we are, rooftop at Cross Media, a place that I know well. Kind of, I think now our first sort of sponsor. They let Cameron and crew let us up here to their beautiful space. I have a few little video images I'll share of this incredible rooftop here in New York on a bright, sunny, but freezing cold day, Beth. Maybe you're used to that up in Syracuse, but
never get used to it.
Yeah, you never get used to it. And with us, we have, I don't know, how do I read enough about you, Jack, to say, like,
old-timer.
Yeah, but lots of media knowledge. I don't want to say, like, futurist, but I felt like there's a little futurist in you.
Well, there's a lot of futurists.
Yeah.
In fact, that's both a positive and the negative, because when you're too far into the future, people don't pay attention until it's too late.
Like that. And we don't have our regular, my hope for this was to have my camera crew here. So we're kind of winging it for our first remote, but I think we have this sorted. We've got multiple cameras, and of course, we have the hostess with the mostest with us, Professor Beth Egan from Syracuse, of course, along with Jack. So we're going to
also from Syracuse.
Oh, right, that's right. Jack's from
Newhouse
Syracuse.
powerhouse.
Newhouse grad, longtime Newhouse board member, and grew up in Utica, New York. So
I've been.
Little more snow than Syracuse, even.
That's right. Yeah.
If that's possible.
So we're gonna have a wide-ranging conversation, judging from our pre-session here, sitting at the beautiful kitchen/bar at Cross Media. But we wanted to start out, and I thought that a leading part of this conversation. I know Beth and I, we've been talking to our audience a lot about the issues, I would say, with the move from, let's say, linear TV, cable television, into the world of, CTV, what many people would say, oh, that's my Apple TV or my Roku or my Samsung, right? This ability. We've talked a little bit about how my kids just cannot wrap their head around the concept of a rerun, right? Like if I missed a show on a Wednesday night, I couldn't see it until 4 months later, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But the big news, obviously, and one of the reasons why I'm thrilled that you and Professor Beth hooked up and got this set up is we want to talk a little bit about consolidation. And while I probably, acting as the consumer here, I'm really excited about the potential of one less app I have to filter through to get to my Knicks or my Yankees or my show, whatever I'm looking for. At the time, I think I had the Olympics, the Knicks, and the Yankees all playing at the same time.
I'm glad to hear you had the Yankees.
Yeah, I had the Yankees.
My team.
And I was thinking, like, I got to go in and out. Like, I couldn't just channel surf like I could 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And here I'm going into an app, then I got to have to see an ad, then I got to go. And by the time I'm done, But there are other ramifications with consolidation. Mm-hmm. And I'm thrilled to have you. I know, this has been something that we've been interested in, and we wanted to get your perspective on where this is going and how it will end up, I think, not just for the advertising community as an ad agency representative. I'm going to make Beth the ad agency representative, the publisher, but also the consumers, mm-hmm. right? Who are the mm-hmm. end users mm-hmm. of this. Where is this all going?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for hosting me. Most importantly, Beth, you and I go back a number of years, and you've always been kind of one of my go-to at Newhouse.
Oh, thank you.
And I brought a copy of my new textbook.
Oh, excellent.
On media ecology, which I want to give you a copy of. So that's I'm now teaching at the University of Arizona, mm-hmm. and media ecology has been my passion. There are 5,000 media ecologists in the world, and no class or textbook on media ecology. So
let's change that.
Changing it, and it's relevant to the conversation we're having, because media ecology is the environment of media and culture, society, business, politics, and vice versa, the environment that media exists in, and its influence and impact. And I think what's so front and center today with everything that's going on with contraction, consolidation, as well as the fragmentation and expansion, the economics, Wall Street paying a lot of attention, is that the visibility of media's impact on so much of our day-to-day realities and existence across the ecosystem, the environment of life, has become really prominent. So it's a good time to be talking about media, I think.
Yeah, and who knew when I got into the business and chose media as my career. Back then, you went into media because you couldn't get a job in account. But I guess I consider myself a bit of a futurist because that was my passion from the beginning, and it was great to be on the floor.
Having grown up in Utica, New York, when I grew up, when I was a kid, there was only one TV station. It was a co-affiliate of NBC and ABC, which, believe it or not, were once one part of ABC, was a stepchild of NBC, and was forced to spin out NBC, and it became ABC. It was the blue and the red. But I got cable when I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty old right now. So,
What was that, around 95?
and far before that, but we didn't call it cable, we called it HBO. And it was HBO that really sold it in. And then, in addition to HBO, first of all, what it did for me was it opened up that I had the Syracuse stations. I had Channel 5, 9, and 11, the independents from New York. So I had Soupy Sales. And, it was like a world opening up to me. And that sold me on media. And that was going to be my career. So I went to Newhouse because of communications. And so that was going to be my career no matter what.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny when Craig and I were talking before you got here, and I just said, look, I've been reading the Myers Report my entire career, and so coming across your perspective on the potential Netflix Warner Brothers Discovery merger just really stood out to me because, as always, your voice is a little bit different than others. And as Craig mentioned, we've talked a lot over this past year on this podcast about Google, the ramifications of their, now I guess called out monopoly in the system.
Guilty.
They're
guilty. We'll see what the penalties are, behavioral or structural. So far, it's been only behavioral.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my prediction is it will continue to be that. But
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And even if it's not from a financial point of view, they'll the ship has sailed.
Yeah. Yes.
So they're you've got, just like ABC, NBC, CBS were once the dominant players, and that was it. And we didn't think it's Google, it's Meta, and it's Amazon. And when I say Google, from the TV point of view, it's YouTube. YouTube has already won the TV battle.
And not YouTube TV, YouTube.
YouTube and YouTube TV,
altogether.
because you talk
Which
about
still is small.
having to go all over the place. I remember when they first started they were at CES very early, when they were just talking about it, and no one was talking to them. No one was going to. I have YouTube TV along with half the U.S. today, and they're going to just keep grabbing things in, and the fact that it's only because of the the regulatory environment that you haven't seen one of those three companies try to gobble up but wait till 2027 once this Warner Brothers Discovery is settled in, because what no one's really talking about in this chaos that we're experiencing today is that A&E Networks, now A&E Global Media, is in play. AMC Networks, Jim Dolan's not talking about it, but it's in play. So there's a lot of other assets that are sitting out there waiting, and that's when I think you're going to see Google more than Amazon or Meta, but Google and Amazon will I think we'll see them.
Why not Apple?
Well, let's wait and see who replaces Tim Cook. It's not been Tim Cook's appetite. He's not been an acquirer. He's not been an innovator, and he's really not been an investor in the television business. I mean, you've got some shows at Apple TV, but it's not really a player in the competitive
Right, no
ad
sports,
market.
right, yeah.
No sports. They're really hardly present in the ad market. You know, you see them, but they're not one of the main characters. But that may change. That may need to change, unless he's smart and just stays out of it completely. Unless, you know, I think Apple would be smart to. And when I think about Apple, I think about the fact that there hasn't been any real innovation coming out of Apple for a few years. Johnny Ive, the designer, is now in partnership with OpenAI,
Right.
quietly, and saying he's building a new human interface. So I am excited about what's he doing back there that no one's talking about. And so that's a really good question about why not Apple. Why not Apple? I think maybe because they've been smart.
So in my personal quest to smooth out my television watching experience, I have tasked myself to upload or to allow Apple TV not just to surface the icons, but then put it inside of Apple TV itself. So you can put your HBO, you can put your Paramount, you can put your stuff into their interface and just use the Apple TV tile and stay in there. But you obviously lose some features. There's some featureless, which led me to think, along with some of the niche stuff that they've done. So they've got some successful shows, but they don't seem to be playing around with it. You don't hear them. You don't, and I'm wondering why. We were talking a little bit about Sirius.
I just think it's senior management doesn't have the appetite to be playing in this game, and you know, maybe they're wise not to be playing in the game right now, but they are at their core, they're a technology company. And so I would wait and see what the technology leads, whereas some of these other companies have positioned themselves as content first companies. Of course, Amazon with commerce is just head and shoulders, ahead. And they, retail media is a whole topic we're not necessarily going to talk about, but I've been writing a lot about.
I just wrote that section in my textbook. I'll have to show it to you to see if I covered it okay.
Because retail and commerce media is, in the U.S. this year, it's a $65 billion ad market. And there's no stopping it because of first-party data, and the combination of AI and first-party data is going to be incredibly disruptive in the advertising community, which I know is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, incredibly disruptive.
I mean, in terms of this merger, sorry, Beth, to ask about, obviously Paramount now jumping in here with this hostile opportunity. Netflix itself sitting in the driver's seat. Is that how we would organize this?
Actually, I don't think they are. I don't
really?
think Netflix. I think Netflix has the deal, but I think Paramount has the better deal.
So do you think they're going to be successful?
I'm not sure either of them. I'm not sure.
Really?
Wait and see.
Well,
and
are you saying that from a business perspective or a political perspective?
Well, both. Both. I think CNN, I'm publishing, I'm not sure when this is going to be.
I'm gonna push
published.
hard. Thomas is gonna have to push. I'm gonna push him hard to get me some edits.
Okay.
But go ahead.
We're recording this on
December 12th.
Friday, December 12th.
Yep.
So on Tuesday, I'm publishing a piece talking about how CNN is going to be independently in play. And there will be some bids, one bid in particular that I'm aware of for CNN on a standalone basis. What's interesting is that just a couple after I wrote the article and pushed it out, ready to publish, Trump came out and said that he thought CNN should be sold independently. So I think the back channels are beginning to be turned. So there's a lot, the cable networks. Versant, I do not believe Versant or Comcast is going to get in this game, and nor do I think they should. Here's my. Let's put this whole Warner Brothers Netflix, because it's what Evan Shapiro calls the disco bros, and it's a tech really a traditional media story. And I wanted to come up with a metaphor
Okay.
to share with you that I thought might describe it, and I could only think of the Titanic.
Oh no!
You know, they have all these players with
Quite the metaphor.
you know, they got first class seats on the Titanic, and you know, mid cruise they got downloaded to second class when they hit the iceberg, and which called digital, and they hit the iceberg, and the ship is sinking, and they're all in the ballroom, and they're all so proud to be the legacy players in the ballroom, and they can afford to be. And the ship goes down, but they find that they're kind of sitting in the back, and that the orchestra is still playing. The orchestra is Warner Brothers Discovery up there, and it's playing, and they're hanging in there, and they're going to play right to the very end. And God bless the conductor, he's up there and he's leading the charge, and he's saying, we're going to stay till the bitter end, and we're going to go down with the ship of legacy media. And you got Netflix and now Skydance Paramount, and they're saying, hey, we got better seats up front. Let's move up to the front, and let's get closer to the orchestra. But they're all going down.
Interesting. Yeah.
They're all going down at the
Yeah.
end of the day. It's a ship that's sailed, and I don't think it's I've called it, and others have called it, a death spiral of legacy. I don't think it is. I think it's more that, so we're sitting, as you said, in beautiful, and I'm looking out at all the
Lower Manhattan.
Statue of Liberty.
and I'm looking out at the horizon,
Yep.
also called New Jersey.
Yeah, the continent, we like to say.
The continent, the rest of the United
Yep.
States. And I think people are driving to the horizon, but they're just going to drive off into the horizon and disappear. And that may take 10 years, it may take 20 years. And they're holding on. And I think I think we can think two things about the management of legacy media right now.
Go ahead, keep going.
I think, one thing we can think is congratulations, because they've held on, and they've sustained,
Longer than I
and
thought
they've
they would.
maintained, and their epitaph was written a few times. So I think we can give them credit for holding on, but I also think there should not be credit given when your only stakeholder is Wall Street. And when your decisions are made not based on your long-term vision, your futuristic capabilities of planning for the future and building for the future, but delivering quarterly results so that your shareholder price, your stock price stays up so that you can optimize and maximize your value in an acquisition or in whatever. There's no attention being paid to the advertiser, which was what my articles have been about. And there's little attention being paid ultimately to the consumer. And look, why does Hollywood hate the Netflix deal? Hollywood hates the Netflix deal because they don't like what Netflix did to the Hollywood business model of residuals and back-end value. They made production a work for hire. They're pulling, they pulled things out of the theaters, which were, everything was nicely windowed. You had the theatrical, you had the main play, you had the rerun, you had syndication, then you had, your long tail. So they've disrupted that. So, SAG and AFTRA ultimately, I don't agree with the decision to, hate AI and Disney just did a deal today, yesterday or today with OpenAI. So they're licensing some of their most valuable assets. So I think we're in this transformational period that I don't think it's going to end too quickly. I think we're going to be in this transformational period certainly through 2027. And I don't think we're going to really see the winners other than Google, Meta, Amazon, TikTok. I don't think we're going to see the winners until it plays out more.
Well, one thing that really struck me about something you said in one of your articles was the whole aspect of transparency. And for me, that's what I find most frightening, from an agency perspective, what I find most frightening about this deal is we already have a lack of transparency with Google, Amazon, and Meta to a large extent. And we've fought that off a little bit with some of the legacy media, but you're right, we're going to lose that we're going to have a whole other blind spot.
Right. Well, that's really the point I was making, is that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the advertiser community to get into the regulatory process with a voice that said whichever deal it should include, whether it's Paramount or whether it's Netflix or whether it's another player who steps in, the deal should include in protections for the advertiser that ultimately is responsible for the funding. There's only, really two sources of funding. You mentioned it's the advertiser and the consumer. And, a lot of middlemen playing in that. But from an advertiser point of view, this is a once-in-a-generation lifetime to get regulatory requirements for transparency, for visibility of research, for definition of the research, because the walled gardens, they're only looking at their own data. And by implementing it here, therefore then for it to be required over at the walled gardens of Google and Meta, who have done a really, really impressive job of avoiding any kind of responsibility or transparency.
Right.
And capturing 75-80% of the digital money and a growing percentage of the retail media money. Amazon alone is 2/3 or more. In terms of transparency, though, the agencies themselves, it's not in their the holdcos, not in their self-interest to regulate transparency, because they've become non-transparent.
That's right.
That's become embedded.
That's where their profit comes from.
That's where their profitability comes from. And as Erwin Gottlieb said years ago when asked, and he was criticized for it, he says, we're transparent about not being transparent.
That sounds like Erwin.
So, as the industry, it's in their best interest to continue working with the triumvirate, because that's where their optimum profitability is, and lack of transparency works for the agency holdcos.
Yeah.
Now, I think that leads to a question when you look at the AMCs and the ANCs and the Foxes, who have a growing number of fast channels.
Right.
Hundreds of fast, not thousands of these fast channels. I think A&E announced more global fast channels and around the world. They to me seem to be a place to keep your eye on in terms of how they somehow manage to come together with someone other than the trade desk and Magnite, who are players in that in that game, to at least make themselves compatible on as a mass kind of aggregation of content. So I don't know. I don't want to come across, maybe I do want to come across, I don't know, as being the pessimistic or I would say I'm disappointed. We go back, and you certainly go back, not in terms of years, but in terms of responsibility that the broadcast industry that we grew up with is operated in the public interest, convenience, and necessity, and that was regulated. It was also NAB code that advertisers had to conform to transparency and truth about who was communicating the message. Well, that's disappeared in the political world. Billions of dollars going to be spent next year in political advertising with no transparency about who's putting those funds in.
Or who's creating the output. Or what's creating the output.
Well, we could take that comment in a few different directions, but we
Right.
won't. So I would say, having been in the business for 50 years now and having had the Myers Report for 40 of those years, and I was at ABC and radio and CBS television before that, and really loving the business, and as a media ecologist, looking at the Neil Postman, who wrote Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business, and he predicted what's happening politically today in terms of the role of media and putting people to sleep. Neil was concerned not that people stopped listening and started laughing, but that they didn't know what they were listening to or what they were laughing at.
Right.
And I think we're all being acquiesced into silence, and I think advertisers are acquiesced into silence on what's happening with the Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I mean, you guys both know I'm so passionate about getting the message to the consumer. You've been asking questions from the consumer point of view. I think consumers are asleep at the wheel because they like to say that they hate advertising, which is, I don't believe, true. But we were talking before you got here about how much we're paying for all of these subscriptions. And I don't think the consumer understands enough that advertising is saving them from that. And the risk I see in all of this consolidation and the potential shift to a walled garden within some of these legacy media is going to put us much more at risk of having to pay more and more for our content and then create this really entertainment divide because so many people just flat out won't be able to pay for it. And that's the fear I have moving forward.
Well, yes, that's a legitimate fear. There's also a fear that we look out 20 years into the future and it's consolidated into one or two or three voices who are controlling the available voices. At least right now we have a lot of different voices and more voices than ever with user-generated content, influencers. And ultimately, that again begins to get consolidated, and I think the danger is that we, certainly in totalitarian governments, we have typically one voice.
Yes.
So, I think you could be nervous and scared about that as well.
That's true.
I mean, in your opinion, Jack, we had John Marks on from 60 Minutes producer. We've talked to a few other folks about news. And I thought maybe 5-6 years ago, if you asked me where we'd be today, the only reason why I would have a subscription to any type of live news is a television product was for sports and news. It feels like the only reason why people are buying this stuff is for sports. News is now leveled out. It's all over the place. People are getting their news. You mentioned TikTok, Instagram.
Where do you get your news?
So I get my news usually in my ear through my Sirius satellite radio. So I'll flip through CNN, MSNBC, all the different channels, all the news channels there. I'll also go on to YouTube and watch some of the news broadcasting, and then occasionally I'll put it on my Fubo.
Yeah. Where do you get your news?
Mostly the New York Times and the Guardian.
Okay. I get my news, number one is Puck.
Yeah,
Subscribe to Puck. I find it good. The Information for Silicon Valley News, the Bulwark, which is
Okay.
kind of a left wing,
Yeah.
and then the Free Press. Now that really interests me because the Free Press was acquired at a multiple way beyond its value because of Barry Weiss,
Okay.
and who was formerly New York Times, and Barry Weiss is now beginning to make some moves in terms of
Yeah.
her. But I'm almost 100% off of legacy news media. I do still get the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and
Now, when you say puck, though, are you saying
Puck.
broadcast?
No,
Oh
Puck.
no, yeah.
Puck is the-
your
it's-
puck.
it's-
I actually am
it's-
semaphore when it
Okay.
comes to written.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
like Dave Weigel. I like to
Okay,
read
fair
Dave's
enough.
column
Yeah.
Yeah.
quite a bit. Shout out to
I
my
like
friends.
Puck.
over
It
there.
covers a lot, and it's got some really good. It's got John Heilman and other people who I respect.
Yaffe, she's on there. The Russian special. Yeah, she's
So they
great.
cover fashion, they cover a lot of entertainment.
Yeah.
And they've been pretty good on the Warner Brothers deal. They've been pretty, they got Matt Bologna in L.A. I think that's how to pronounce his name. Apologies if I got that wrong. But look at you go across the pond and BBC and Channel 4 in England don't have any, their leadership and BBC was one of my go-tos, BBC
Yeah.
America, and who knows what direction that's going to be
right.
really interesting to watch. You look at the state of news across the world, and I think it's fair to be really concerned. I think the interesting thing will be the fate of sports, because you've got you've got now athletes beginning to make money in college.
Yeah.
And that's going to feed down into high school. There's a 15-year-old who's the hottest thing in soccer or football right
Yeah.
now, who's going to be all the attention for the next few weeks. So I think it's going to be really interesting. You've got certainly disruption around the NCAA and the the ACC and the Big Ten and the Big 12
Yeah.
and the Pac-10. I think we've got a lot of disruption in the economics of sports. And until the Yankees win the World Series, I'm
Well, my husband's a Mets fan, so I don't have to worry about winning a
No,
World
the Dodgers.
Series.
The Dodgers have displaced the Yankees as the big spenders.
Which is okay. My son is a Dodgers
Dodgers
fan.
fan.
So
But when the reason why I was mentioning that is as I'm looking around and we talked a little bit about Apple TV, but Prime, right, jumping into sports. Why didn't have you heard? I mean, I guess I'm now talking to Jack, so I'm going to ask. Insider, why wasn't Bezos and company in on trying to grab Superman? Why weren't they in on this? Why aren't they jumping in to say, well, if we had HBO, right, in there, that would be, combining Superman with football and whatever else that they're doing.
it's not his business. His business is still commerce, and Prime. What is it? $129 now to be a Prime member.
We are going to know this. We're going to do a real mathematical. We're going to have a mathematical.
I think it's $129 per month to get Prime, and you get free delivery
Yeah.
with
Oh,
Prime.
yeah.
That's a real motivation. Look, it's not a good deal. Fundamentally, it's. I mean, look at what's happened in the market. Paramount, Netflix share. Price went down. Warner Brothers went up. Netflix went down. Paramount jumped in. Their share price goes down. It's floating around at $30 a share, which everyone said Zaslav would never get $30 a share. It may go to 32 when all is said and done for the whole thing, or if you take the breakup pieces, that might be the number that it ends up at. It's not a good deal. It's just not a good deal. Any economic any analyst, whether you're talking to, you know, Michael Nathanson and Fishman at Moffett-Nathanson, and you talk, you know, to the other analysts out there, and you listen, as I do, to Evan Shapiro, who I think has a pretty good handle on the business and speaks to truth,
Yep.
you know, to power. No one's saying this is a good deal. Everyone's saying here's why they're doing this, and you know, again, I'll come back to my analogy. It's to get a better table on the in the front of the ballroom in the Titanic. So until I see that there's something better for the consumer, until I see that there's something better for the advertiser, then I'm going to stay on that. The only ones that it's good for are the ones who are, you know, holding the stock of Warner Brothers Discovery, and especially their leadership. And, you know, good for them. They're doing what they're paid to do, and they're certainly paid a lot of money to do it.
Yes, they are.
So, but I don't see advantages for the consumer, and I don't see advantages. And what bothers me the most deeply about that is that the advertisers don't seem to care.
Yeah.
There's, and I know the ANA cares, and I know the leadership of the ANA cares, but they have to serve the best interests of their members. And in many cases, when it comes to media-related decisions, those decisions are driven by procurement and not by marketing. So, and I think we're 5 years away from AI pushing advertising to care more about marketing than about the financial benefits of having highly efficient, cost-efficient media where to show, you know, messages.
Yeah.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's
So I guess, you know, it comes back. I'm disappointed. I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I'm sad because an industry I love. I'm just launching with Tim Spengler, a longtime media professional, a new podcast, and we made the decision to focus. And as I have in the books that I've written and am writing, are about humanity. They're about leading with empathy, leading with listening, leading with belonging, and those are qualities and traits that haven't been at the forefront of management or leadership. So we're calling it Lead Human.
I love that.
And we're really focusing and talking to people about who have demonstrated throughout their career that they've always put, you know, the human qualities of building teams and managing teams and rewarding teams front and center, and that's demonstrated growth. And that is a direct tie-in to the work that I've done for the last 20 years on, you know, I'm almost reluctant to say DEI.
Right. There goes
We-
the podcast. No need to worry about producing this one. We're off. But here I do. But before we wrap up, I mean, bringing this up, it sounds like I've always been of the opinion that YouTube is a publisher. Like in my mind, right? I look at Google and I see them as publishers. They should be, you know, in accordance with the rules. Facebook, same thing. Like there should be no kind of carry protection for them. Is that where, this is what I'm afraid of for the fourth estate, right? Like we're in a position, and I think John was on, we're going to have John on again soon to continue that conversation. But those areas are, you know, if you have a company like Google, or you are starting to consolidate, and what it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, which is why I want to ask the question is, are we saying like the Metas, the Googles, the Amazons, the three big winners here, none of them have a real stake in media? Maybe Amazon only because of their acquisition of the Post or his. I think that's a personal.
Yeah, that's
acquisition.
personal.
But okay,
Yeah,
but so Amazon, are they going to care about the fourth estate? Are they going to care about the actual news? Whereas a network, John was on describing a newsroom in the 80s. Like you're talking about a lot of people doing a lot of fact checking, a lot of things like that. Or are we just going to be grabbing a camera and Beth and I running around with our TikTok camera saying, this is the news.
I think he was saying he worked in a newsroom where he actually heard them say, stop the presses.
Yeah.
He heard the machines stop. Yeah, no one's yelling stop the presses anymore because the presses are 24/7. They're nonstop. And they don't stop for anything.
Right.
No. Meta's an interesting company. Zuckerberg's an interesting guy. He just pulled back on his multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar investment in the metaverse. I don't think he's really pulled back.
Oh.
I think he's pulled back financially. He's leveling it out, but I still bet, and I have a chapter in my book, The Tao of Leadership. I have a chapter that says this, so I'm sticking with it. That I think ultimately, it may be 10 years away, but he's the one who's going to be proven right. I think that's where the future is. It's in the metaverse.
The Matrix.
I'm writing science fiction now.
Awesome.
I'm writing a trilogy called Eidolon, Eidolon. I've copywritten that, so no one can trademark it. I've trademarked it. So, and it'll be 2027 before book one is published. It's 150 years into the future, but I really believe that the Matrix and that the time will come when we won't need the internet, we won't need the computer to move back and forth into a metaverse. Now, I put that out there because I'll be long gone before I'm proven right or wrong. So it's one of the few things that no one can say he was wrong or right about. So, but I believe that Zuckerberg is the only one of the players who's truly got a long-term vision and is implementing it. I think everyone else is still playing in that short-term game. So if there were anyone who I'd be interested in, because he doesn't give a damn about the news. He doesn't give a damn about the politics. None of them. They were all, look, they have defined who they are as capitalistic and apolitical figures who will support whoever it is going to be most valuable to their capitalistic society that they live in. And news is a danger to that. Fundamentally, news is a danger.
Wow.
I don't think we can top that, Craig.
No. Do you have any last questions?
No, I think
we
that's
obviously
a
have
perfect,
to.
perfect note to end this on.
You're not going to publish this, right? This is not going out anymore.
No.
I
Cameras. We're just testing. We're just testing.
This is the danger for me. The danger for me of being at a point in my career where I only have to serve what I believe, and sadly, I really do believe in media advertising and the news, and I'm saddened by the state of all three.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bothering me now. I'm beginning to kind of see where this can end up as a real problem. John, the conversation with John just confirmed my fears, right? Like that kind of feeling.
And I can't let this end until I come back, Beth, to education. So I'm going to quote my mentor, Neil Postman, who, by the way, quoted Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, the medium is the massage. And McLuhan quoted Aldous Huxley in Brave New World, and Aldous Huxley quoted H.G. Wells. And they all said basically the same thing, that we're on a path between destruction and education. And so when you want solutions, when it is education, and it is the educational institutions, and in my opinion, the educational institutions like Newhouse, like the University of Arizona, need to be embracing AI all in, finding a path for online education as widely distributed and as economically efficient as possible to teach media ecology, to teach the importance and value of news, to teach the dangers, to teach advertising and the foundations, and what you spoke about, that it's not just an economic, it's a consumer interest. So I think there's only one solution to the challenges that we face, and that is that the educational institutions at all levels, and I think with AI it needs to start in preschool. A parent told me the other day she has a little baby. The baby said Alexa before she said mom or dad, because that was the word she heard most in her house. So she was communicating with Alexa at like 18 months old.
Wow. Well, I certainly agree with you. And I was teaching AI before ChatGPT and all of this with my partnership with Rex Spriggs and his son Caleb and the AI Conundrum.
Yes.
We did it right here in this building.
I did.
We had the conference room downstairs, and I remember because we were just talking about the word AI, because I consulted for an AI brand who up until the beginning of 2023 never used the word AI.
Right.
Wanted to say machine learning, algorithms, anything but AI, because AI was the Minority Report, was the Matrix.
But it's also
and now it's
also too broad a term, and it's getting thrown around, and people who are talking about it don't really know what they're talking about. But yeah, Rex and Caleb very generously were giving my students advanced drafts of their books. And what I've been saying from the beginning, the reason a media person was talking about AI so early on is because we've been living with AI since digital media began.
That's right.
Like, that was not new to any of us. I absolutely agree with you. I think what's missing and what frightens me is the way that universities, at least my college, is approaching teaching AI is the hands on the keyboard and how to push the buttons. And the people who are going to be successful at utilizing AI, what the companies are going to be hiring for is the critical thinking skills.
The analytics, the ability, critical thinking, two words that are in the zeitgeist, and if they're not, they should be critical thinking.
They need to be. We're teaching prompt crafting or craft prompting, always say it backwards.
Prompt engineering.
That is a Mad Lib. It is nothing more than a Mad Lib.
Interesting.
And you can hand me all of the prompts you want, but if I don't know how to fill in that blank,
it's critical thinking.
Then
I would
out.
also, but a kudos to Newhouse for having someone like Shelley Palmer.
Yes.
And having his expertise and bringing it in and having done
and
that.
sorry, but I'm taking credit for that. I introduced Shelley to Newhouse.
You should take credit for it. That's really, it's great. And Shelley's
it is.
terrific.
And he's so generous.
Yeah.
Well,
as are you, being
you.
here today. And your
I have
time
to say thank you. I mean, this was really great. This is a lot of great content. We're obviously going to try to get this up as quickly as we can. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to overstep the hostess with the mostess. We got to have you back. We got to take AI a little deeper, because we talked a lot about some mergers, acquisition, stuff like that, but we should definitely talk more about AI.
Timetable for me, thank you. I appreciate that. My next book called Your Third Brain, Powering a Future of Unimagined Possibilities, talks about co-intelligence, human-machine co-intelligence becoming one. And that comes out next August. So
perfect.
And
let's do it in Tucson.
I'll come to Tucson, but maybe not in August.
I'm not there in August.
I was there in October. It was lovely.
October's a good time.
But I want to thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me,
Professor Beth. Any last words before we head off into the maddening part of Manhattan to grab lunch? Anything?
No, thank you, Jack, so much.
If I get in trouble, I'm going to blame you, though.
That's fine. I'll take full responsibility, but not the blame.
Thank you, guys.